I was, at the time of the incident, a young 19-year-old living in a tranquil small town with my parents. It was just the three of us, with my brother Ben having moved out 3 years prior. I had missed Ben terribly when he moved out, so my parents decided to get me a companion, a very loyal, protective companion I named Rex. He was a collie, and Rex followed me everywhere. With my parents preparing to be away for the night, the customary instructions echoed in my ears: lock the doors and windows and don't open the door to strangers. I finally found myself alone, accompanied solely by the comforting presence of Rex. My parents' departure always left me with a sense of independence tinged with the thrill of being on my own, even if it was just for one night. I made myself dinner, sharing a bit with Rex before settling on the couch to watch a movie. Rex had jumped on the couch next to me, his head resting on my lap. It was around midnight. Exhaustion weighed heavily on my eyelids, and I needed to go to bed. After checking the windows and doors as per my parents' instructions, I headed to my room. However, when passing Ben's room, I noticed the latch on his window wasn't fully closed. That was strange because we never opened his window, and for some reason I just couldn't get it closed properly. I left it. I was way too tired for the struggle. Rex, as was his habit, stationed himself faithfully on the floor beside my bed, and with the serenity of the night and the soft sound of rain falling on the roof, I fell into a deep sleep. In the dead of night, must have been round 2 a.m., an indistinct scratching noise crept into my slumber, stirring me from the depths of my dreams. Half awake, I extended my hand over the edge of the bed, expecting to feel the familiar touch of Rex's wet tongue as he signaled his desire to go outside. True to my anticipation, his light, warm lick grazed my hand, and I drifted back to sleep. At 3:50 a.m., the scratching noise persisted, yanking me back into wakefulness. Once again, I reached down, my hand seeking reassurance in Rex's comforting presence. The familiar lick met my touch, and I dismissed the eerie sounds, attributing them to the nocturnal stirrings of the town outside. The night, however, refused to give me peace. As the clock approached 5 a.m., the relentless scratching sounds became unbearable. Frustration and curiosity mingled within me, urging me to investigate the origin of the disturbance. The scratching seemed to echo from Ben's room, which was odd as I distinctly remembered leaving the door open. Hesitantly, I approached the closed door, my hand trembling slightly as I turned the handle to peek inside. The sight that met my eyes froze the blood in my veins. It was Rex, softly panting and looking at me as if to say, "Why did you lock me in here?" Baffled and unnerved, I retraced my steps back to my room, and there, on the floor where Rex would normally sleep, was a note, its ominous message making me freeze in terror. "Humans can lick too, my beautiful." Fear gripped my soul as the realization dawned on me. The familiar licking sensation in the dead of night hadn't been Rex. It had been an intruder, masquerading as my faithful companion, infiltrating my home, leaving behind a chilling note to make his presence known. It's been 2 years since that scary night, and I still freak out every time Rex wants to lick my hand. Alone at home on a quiet evening, I anxiously awaited the arrival of my boyfriend. At 17, I didn't mind being alone, but the prospect of my boyfriend's company was always comforting. While I waited, I settled on the couch to look for a movie we could both enjoy watching together. My boyfriend, running late, had promised to be there soon, so I tried to distract myself with the TV. In the midst of the search, I was startled by the sudden ring of the landline. I got up to answer. "Hello?" I uttered, but there was only silence on the other end. Perplexed, I dismissed it as a wrong number or a telemarketer. I had just settled back into the couch when the phone rang again. The silence persisted, and I couldn't help but feel a twinge of discomfort. The third time it rang, I picked up with a growing sense of unease. "Whoever this is, stop calling. This isn't funny," I shouted into the phone, hoping to deter the persistent caller. Still, there was only silence on the other end. leaving me with a disconcerting sense of isolation. As I contemplated the bizarre calls, a sudden change chilled the air. The next call brought with it the unsettling sound of heavy breathing, followed by a gruff voice on the other side. "How long before he gets there? Will he get to you before I do?" The cryptic words were confusing until I realized the caller was referring to my boyfriend. But how could the caller know he was on his way? The knot of unease tightened in my stomach as I grappled with the implications. Suddenly there was a sharp crash. It was the sound of breaking glass echoing through the house. Panic seized me and I knew I needed to escape. Without hesitation, I darted towards the back door, my mind racing with fear and uncertainty, each step echoing with the urgency of survival. As I fumbled with the door, the reality of the situation sank in. Someone was inside my home, and their words hinted at something I didn't want to even imagine. The urgency to escape intensified, and with a final push, I burst into the night air. Frantically, I ran to a neighbor's house, banging on their door so hard I'm surprised it didn't break. In the distance, I could hear the sound of sirens. The distant sirens grew louder, and moments later my boyfriend arrived simultaneously with the flashing lights of a police car. His eyes mirrored the concern etched on my face, and it didn't take long for him to explain what had happened on his end. He had also received a chilling call just before leaving his house, a voice inquiring, "How long till you get there? Will I get to her before you do?" Recognizing the imminent danger, he had immediately contacted the police. Despite the swift arrival of both the police and my boyfriend, the intruder had managed to evade capture. The realization struck us like a cold bucket of ice. This wasn't a random act, it was someone we knew. The caller had access to both our numbers, knew my address, and was aware of my boyfriend's impending arrival. The police, thorough in their investigation, scoured the surroundings for any trace of the mysterious caller, but they were unable to find anything that would lead to the identity of our tormentor. My boyfriend and I exchanged uneasy glances, grasping the unsettling truth that the threat might be someone close to us. There were no other incidents after that, but our lives were irrevocably changed. We were no longer the easygoing, carefree teenagers we should have been. We were suspicious of everyone and spent most of our time together obsessing over who could have been responsible. We broke up a few months later, but no matter where our lives take us, we will forever share a bond that no one could even begin to understand. At the tender age of 16, I had found my place in the world in front of a computer screen. I will admit that at the time I was a bit of a geek and mostly immersed myself in the digital world, engrossed in playing games that provided an escape from my reality. Being a loner didn't bother me much. The hum of my computer and the virtual adventures it offered were all I needed. My parents, occupied with their own lives, were often out, their absence generally going unnoticed in my world of pixels and keystrokes. The ticking of the clock and the distant sounds of the outside world was just background noise. The digital universe was where I lived. One night, much like any other, I found myself up late, the soft glow of the computer monitor casting a dim light in my room. My folks were out, and I was engrossed in a game. The house was quiet except for the click-clack of the keyboard punctuating the stillness of the night. Suddenly, a message popped up on my computer screen, interrupting my digital adventures. The message simply read, "Hi." My heart skipped a beat as I stared at the screen, my mind racing, wondering who this could be and how this message just popped up. I stared at the screen for a while until another message popped up. "Are you going to answer?" A few moments passed before I responded. "Hi, who are you?" I sat waiting in anticipation, still not sure if I should even entertain a conversation. Response: "I can see you." That statement made me uneasy. I glanced around my room, half expecting to find an intruder lurking in the shadows. The dim glow of the computer screen cast long shadows over each corner of the room, taking on a scary aura. and the hum of the computer's fan seemed to be extra loud. I hesitated before responding, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. A reply seemed both futile and terrifying. The air in the room felt heavy, and the minutes ticked away in a silence that was anything but comforting. As I deliberated my next move, another message appeared, this one more explicit and unsettling than the last. "You're not alone." Panic set in, and I fumbled to disconnect from the computer as if severing the digital tie would shield me from the unseen eyes that seemed to pierce through the screen. The room plunged into darkness as I shut down the computer, the sudden silence echoing louder than the digital hum that had been there before. Alone in the darkness, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone, or something, lingered in the shadows. Scared shitless, I peered through the window, half expecting to find a pair of eyes staring back at me from the inky blackness outside. That night, as I lay in bed, I couldn't shake the lingering unease. I heard my parents arrive home and was finally able to fall asleep. The following morning, standing at my computer, I hesitated, unsure whether to turn it on or leave the unsettling events of the night undisturbed. Rationalizing that I was being overly paranoid, I switched it on. The familiar hum of the machine and the soft glow of the monitor greeted me, providing a semblance of normalcy. It was just some dumb message that spooked me, I assured myself. But as the operating system booted up, I found myself staring at the screen with a heightened sense of vigilance. The message from the previous night was clear in my mind, and a shadow of doubt lingered. I sat there, cursor hovering over the keyboard, contemplating whether to proceed with my usual digital activities or to heed the warning signs and shut the computer down. Eventually, the allure of the digital world prevailed, and I delved into a gaming session to distract myself. After about 10 minutes of futile attempts to focus on the game, a nagging sense of unease persisted. Frustrated, I decided to take a break and went downstairs to grab a glass of water, hoping to shake off the tension. On my return, my heart skipped a beat as my eyes fixated on the computer screen. There, in stark contrast to the familiar backdrop of my desktop, was a new message, "Where did you go?" A rush of fear surged through me. How could someone or something be communicating with me through my computer, tracking my movements even when I stepped away? I frantically scanned the room as if expecting an intruder to materialize in front of me. I didn't bother to shut down the computer. Without hesitation, I reached behind the computer, swiftly pulling the plug out of the socket and severed the connection. I contacted a friend who was a whiz with computers, his expertise becoming my lifeline in unraveling the mysterious intrusion. I explained the bizarre events and shared the ominous message. After a tense wait, he finally delivered the unsettling revelation. I had been hacked. The intruder had breached the security of my computer and had also gained access to my camera. It was impossible to find out who the culprit was, but to this day I make sure my camera is covered at all times.